Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Josh Lockheed. I'm the training evangelist here at QuoteWerks, and today you're joining us for today's installment in the Pain Point Webinar series. And this particular pain point that we'll be reviewing today is keeping your team in the loop. I appreciate everyone for joining today's call. Our goal with these webinar series is to dive into common business challenges that companies face when creating quotes and proposals. So we know your time is valuable, so these webinars will be fairly short and we try to keep them under 30 minutes. We want you to be able to apply these solutions right away, and we want these webinars to be as quick and as efficient of what your process is or potentially could be if you're not yet using the QuoteWerks software. So again, today's pain point is about keeping your team in the loop, and we're going to be talking specifically about internal notifications. So if there is activity on a quote, getting notified that there's that activity. If there's activity on a quote, having multiple people that may receive notifications about that quote, and also if certain quotes have gone out, being notified when a customer interacts with that quote or when a specific milestone is going to be met. So, this is obviously a major pain point, and many times someone from your team will be left out of loop during the sales process, and what we'll be talking about today is ultimately going to keep that from happening. So with all of our Pain Point Webinar series events, we have an agenda. So we're going to go through the pain points or the pain point that we'll be discussing today, which I've already mentioned. We'll go through the solutions that the QuoteWerks platform provides. We'll then get into a live demo to show you those solutions live and in person. And then we'll also follow back at the end for questions and answers. Now, with that being said, I do want to encourage you to ask questions throughout the course of the webinar. We're using GoToWebinar here, so there's a great questions box up in the top right-hand corner of the GoToWebinar screen. So feel free to ask those questions throughout the course of the webinar. If I'm not able to get to those questions during the webinar itself, I'll try to circle back to them at the end. And if there's a burning question that was not answered during today's webinar, you can always reach us at community@quoteworks.com. Additionally, this particular webinar, as all of our webinars, are recorded, and we'll send you a link of the webinar once it's uploaded to our website. So keep an eye out for that within the next 24 to 48 hours. And if you haven't done so already, we also recommend that you subscribe to our different social accounts, as we're regularly sending out different information there that may be useful to you. That being said, let's jump into today's pain point. So again, we've said that the pain point that we'll be talking about is keeping your team in the loop. So it's great to have a process that is good for delivering quotes to customers, but when it comes down to it, there's going to be oftentimes more than one person that are involved in that process itself. So let's say you sent your quote or proposal out to the customer, great, but how do you notify your sales team during that process, or not even just the sales team, your executive team, your accounting team, your purchasing team, any one of those individuals that are involved in that process. So how does purchasing know that the quote's been accepted so that they should procure the deals or the goods? We don't know. How does an inside sales rep know there's a comment from a customer on a quote? And then how does the sales manager know that a large sale is closed? All of that information ultimately can be handled through the notifications that we're talking about. So ultimately, I'm sure this is something that you've been through at some point in your career, where you're working with someone and there's been a lack of communication. So you can see all the different failure points in what should ultimately be a simple process. So the question becomes, how do we fix it, and how do we make sure that nothing's missed? Well, within the QuoteWerks software, there are 3 specific areas that we're going to talk about today in relation to that. The first one here are activity notifications. And this is a really great tool that you can use to identify when specific actions are taken on the customer's end. So ultimately, this is done via QuoteValet. QuoteValet is QuoteWerks' online delivery and acceptance vehicle. And this particular activity notification is going to help to take, again, the different activities that a customer is doing, interactions and a quote that they may be having, and give you notification of those things happening. So you're going to want to set up notifications for each step in the process, and then users only see notifications for their part in the process. And it's important to mention that the sales rep is going to get notifications for every event, but then you have the ability, as I mentioned, to set up additional users that might ultimately get notified when specific events occur as well. Again, talk about the idea of say, purchasing. The particular deal has been closed, the order has been won, the customer is paid. What next? You might want to send a notification when a customer is paid to the purchasing department to let them know to move forward with that purchasing. Likewise, if an order has been accepted but not paid, you might want to make sure that the accounting team knows so they know to bill that customer. Definitely a lot of different steps in the process, a lot of different activities that we monitor that can trigger these notifications, and we'll talk about that more during our demo later. The second solution that we're talking about is reminder options. So let's say that the sales rep automatically receives notifications, but what happens when a quote is accepted but not paid? What if they haven't viewed the quote yet? You can set up reminder notifications and they'll automatically remind the sales rep when these particular thresholds have been met. And they can also be set for the client as well. And we'll talk about what reminder options are and how they work when we get into our demo in just a minute, but certainly a great tool that you can use to make sure that either your customer is directly notified when certain thresholds are met, or the sales rep is notified and ultimately given the push to then reach out to the customer and let them know that there's a certain thing that needs to be done, whether it's viewing the quote, whether it's the quote's expiring, or if they've, let's say, accepted the quote but not yet paid for it. Those are the three areas that we're talking about when we're talking about reminder options. So we will review those in more detail again during our demo. And then the third solution, last but not least, is prepared by. So the ability to add essentially a second sales rep to the document. So this is going to be an individual that's named on the actual QuoteWerks quote, and that specific user is notified for each QuoteValet notification in addition to the sales rep. And you can actually use templates for each sales rep to set defaults so that, let's say you've got an inside sales rep that's always creating quotes for sales rep John, who's out in the field. You may have that inside sales rep with a template that is John's quotes, and that particular template would always make sure that they are the sales rep, John's the sales rep, and that the inside sales rep is in the prepared by field. And we'll talk and show you a little bit more about how that works a little bit later. But those are the three solutions that we're talking about today. And before we get into the demo, I just wanted to also kind of review the different notification options that we have when it comes to interacting with QuoteValet. So I talked about different thresholds being met, different activities that the customer might do. When it comes to QuoteValet, we're talking about a email delivered link to a website that contains the quote information. So we're able to pick up on different things that the customer might be doing, and those are all listed here. So for example, we've got the first view notification. This is great if you want to know if the customer has just viewed a quote. We've also got when a customer posts comments or questions, when the quote proposal is accepted, payment received. If the customer does not choose a credit card option for payment, and they say that they intend to pay by a different method, let's say terms, that's going to ultimately be an option for you to set up a notification. And then you can see all of the different areas here that we can ultimately be notified about. And one thing I want to point out here as well is we're talking a lot about the customer interacting with the quote and that causing a QuoteValet notification. But if you look on the top right here, approval approved and approval not approved is when you're using document approvals within QuoteWerks, and that's actually an internal type notification. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that again when we get into the demo. But just wanted to point out the fact that in addition to being triggered by customer activities, we utilize activity notifications for internal options as well, like document approvals. So like I mentioned, we're going to get into a live demo here, and what we're going to do is we're going to set default activity notifications. We're going to talk about how to use activity reminders. We're also going to show you how you can limit notifications from specific IP addresses, and then how you can set the prepared by field for more flexibility as well. So let's jump into it now, and I am going to be demoing this here today in QuoteWerks Web. For those of you that use QuoteWerks Desktop, very, very similar in nature. All of the same things that we'll be doing today can be done on the desktop platform as well. And if anyone in here would like to see anything specific in desktop, just let me know in the chat, and I'll make sure to do that either as we're going through here or potentially at the end. So we are here in QuoteWerks Web. We have a quote that we've created for a customer. And the first thing that I wanted to show you is just kind of how you can set up the different things that we've been talking about. So specifically activity notifications first. So we want to get to the QuoteValet setup screen. And the way that we do that is we go to setup along the left-hand side here. Then we're going to click on options. And if we scroll down a little bit, there's a QuoteValet option here that we can choose. Now, QuoteValet, as I mentioned, is the QuoteWerks online delivery and acceptance vehicle for quotes. That being said, there's a lot of different things that you can set here, whether or not it's the logo, all of the different specific information that you want to use to brand your quote. We also have templates here, so being able to actually determine exactly what you want the output to look like. And there's, again, a lot of different options here that we're not going to cover, but I do want to just start by pointing out the fact that if you are going to be utilizing notification requests as a means to send internal notifications, particularly if you want to do like peer reviews or approval requests, right here is where you would go to toggle those on. So if you're going to be doing internal notifications, it's a good idea to come in here and just make sure that these two checkboxes are toggled. So that's important first step. Now, along the left-hand side here, again, we've got a number of different options, but as we've been discussing, activity notifications is one of those options here. And we're going to click on here and just talk through this a little bit. So as you can see, I've actually already got some activity notifications already set up. Now just remember, I'm signed in as the administrator here, which means that I'm going to receive all of the notification emails. What we're talking about when we look at the activity notifications is who, in addition to the individual that's providing that quote, that prepared by, or actually be the sales rep on the quote, if there's anyone other than the sales rep, who are we going to CC them and when are we going to CC them, or BCC them for that matter. So you can see I've got two set up here, one for when the quote is accepted. We've got the administrator being the individual that owns that document, and we're going to CC T Dennis and BCC Joe Sales. And when a payment's received, again, by the administrator or on a document the administrator owns, we're going to CC T Dennis. Now, if we wanted to create a new activity notification, all we have to do is go over here and click on this gold new button. And all those different notification options, or I should say activities that we saw in the slide that we looked at previously are all listed here. So we've got quote accepted, payment received, quote mobile quote created, order form, order placed, first view, so on and so forth. Now, as I mentioned, there are a couple of these that are probably more important. So let's take a look and just kind of review what options we have here. So quote accepted is going to be actually a really good one because this is going to say that the customer has agreed to move forward with the quote. It's being converted to an order. And then if we want to set up a activity notification for a quote being accepted, the first step in that is saying, who is that particular owner of the of these orders or of these quotes that we want to be notified of when their documents are interacted with. So we would come and choose either the individual or we would choose the group of individuals that we want for these notifications to go out on for their quotes. So in this case, we'll just go ahead and say if Ray creates a quote and that quote is accepted, we then want to notify, and then we would include the individuals that we want to notify in the CCC, or the CC or the BCC, I should say. So in this case, quote is accepted for a document that Ray owns. Let's notify inside sales. That's going to notify anyone there within inside sales that's a part of that group. Now we can choose different options here. For example, you saw the drop-down menu there. These are all going to be pulling from the document itself. So these are all users in QuoteWerks, and then the groups that we have available. In addition to being able to select those, you can actually come in and type in. So I got an email here that I use. Now we would get a notification to this particular email, again, anytime the quote is accepted for someone that is Ray's quotes, or for a quote that is owned by Ray. BCC, same idea, except in the case of the way that it's being displayed, would be BCC. You don't really have to worry about BCCs when it comes to activity notifications. They're essentially the same as the CC list because they are internal. Would be a little bit different if you're sending out notifications externally, but that's perfectly okay here. So again, here we're setting up this notification that when a quote is accepted for a quote that Ray owns, Inside Sales and QuoteWerks Customer Outlook.com are both going to be notified. So we'll click OK, and you can see that that's now saved here as well. So quote accepted is a really good one. In this case, instead of it going over to let's say Inside Sales, we might want to send it to our accounting department for that case, for them to know that it's now time to bill the customer. We might want to have a group that has all sales managers included in it, in the case where the sales manager will want to know when someone is actually accepting a quote. Really, the capability here is quite broad, and you can include whoever you want in that CC list. Probably a good idea just to keep them internal to your organization, but again, you can put in free type an email here if you'd like. Now, another notification type that I think is really useful to use is going to be a comment posted by customer. So this is where in QuoteValet, the customer has the ability to set a comment on the quote, essentially ask a question of the sales rep. And you might want to set this up so in the case where the individual, let's say Ray, the individual that is preparing the quote, or I should say the sales rep on the quote, is no longer in the office or they're going on vacation, this will give you the ability to make sure that someone else is then able to respond to a customer's question. So just like before, we might say, hey, Ray's a part of the outside sales group. We want any one of his peers to receive this notification when a customer posts a comment so that they can then respond on Ray's behalf. So here we've got the CC list as outside sales. But again, we can make it anything we want. And ultimately, what you set it to is going to be based on your particular workflow needs. So that's another option that we have there for comment posted by customers. And then if we go back, just look at some of the other options. Payment received, this might be a good one for you to say anyone from outside sales that has payment received, we're going to want to send this to accounting at wherever you are, at QuoteWerks.com, right? That's going to trigger to say, all right, the payment's been received. Now it's time to move forward. Accounting department could then process that order, or we might want to say send it over to purchasing so that the individual in the purchasing team now knows to order those items since the payment has been received. So again, the workflows are pretty broad as to what we can do here. It's just going to be based on who you want to keep in the loop and when you want them to be notified. Another thing might be, for example, payment failed. If the payment failed, we might want our accounting team to reach out and get that particular payment done via a direct method or a proxy payment. There's a lot of different options here, and really makes sense for you to take a look at those and see how it would work with your particular workflows. Now, I do want to just point out, if we already have some that are set, as we click into them, the currently selected notification details is just going to show you who the CC and BCC is. And then you might also want to use this non-triggering IP list. You can put IP addresses or IP ranges in there that you don't want to trigger these notifications. And that's good if you're, say, sharing documents internally in your company and want to make it so that they're not being notified on when an individual within your company is viewing it, and ultimately you just want to get notifications when your customers are viewing. All right. The other one that I didn't mention here, but is a good one, is expired quote viewed. That's good to know too. Potentially the customer may be coming back at an old project and taking a look at a quote that was provided a long time ago. In this case, you then have that opportunity to go re-engage with the customer and figure out, what has happened. Are they now ready to move forward? Can you provide a requote of those same items? And then go from there. All right, so that pretty much gives us an overview of activity notifications. One thing that I'll do here just to kind of show you how that works is, again, we have an open quote here. I'm going to go ahead and actually send this or simulate sending this to a customer via QuoteValet, just so we can see what one of those notifications look like. So I'm going to upload this to QuoteValet. And we're going to view this as if we were the customer as well. So I'm going to go ahead and preview that page in QuoteValet. And this is what that QuoteValet quote would look like. I'm actually using a grouped bundle. So you'll see we have a number of different products on here, but we have the one summary line with the subtotal here as well. So if we scroll down, the way the customer would accept the quote is they're going to accept their payment option. They're going to agree to the terms and conditions. They're going to sign with their printed name and with their signature, and then they'll click to accept. We're going to go ahead and do that. And once they've accepted, they now have the ability to actually pay if you've given them that option to do so. So now that we've gone through that process, I just want to show you what one of these notifications look like. I have a notification that just came in from this, and this is just saying, hey, Josh, this is an automated notification. This individual, Ryan Dan, was the contact that I had on my quote, has viewed this for the first time. Now, again, I'm the sales rep on the quote, so that's perfectly fine. It's expected that you're going to get these, but this would also be the notification that someone else on that CC or BCC list would get if you set them up to also receive those notifications. And then we did accept that quote, so we got our acceptance email here as well, just telling us that the quote's been accepted. And you can see that there's a couple different things that you can do here. First, you can view the sales rep page. So if you wanted to look at this internally and just see, hey, what's the quote look like? Has there been any comments that have been uploaded? Doesn't look like there have been. Gives you the ability directly from this email to go in and look at that QuoteValet quote. And then even beyond that, there is a attached PDF version of that quote here as well. And it actually shows you all of the different information that you might want, like who signed and so on and so forth. So a great opportunity for you as a sales rep to be notified, but even more so for other individuals to be notified as well. So for this one in particular, quote accepted, also a great one for sales managers just to stay in the loop as to when orders are being accepted. So that is our notification options here within QuoteWerks, and you've seen how they work. The other thing that we talked about are reminder options. And before I actually go in and show you the reminder options in action, I just want to show you again how to set these. And it's actually done via the same way that we just did by going to options and then QuoteValet. And there's really two different ways that you can interact with reminder options. This is one of them where you can actually set a default for all quotes. So any QuoteValet quotes that go out, if we go to auto reminder options here, will persist with whatever you choose on this page. So when it comes to reminder options, there's 3 different options that you have. When it comes to both the recipient as well as the sales reps, the first one is to remind the recipient or sales rep if the document's not been viewed within a certain number of days. You can see you can set the threshold for the number of days that you want over here. You can also remind the recipient or sales rep when the document's expiring in X number of days. And you can also remind the recipient or sales rep when a document is accepted but not paid after a certain number of days. So those are 3 really good areas that you might want to be notified of when you're working with a particular quote. And if I wanted to, I could come in and set these in whatever way I want. Let's say you want to include both the recipient and the sales rep on those reminders, you can do that. I know, for my own use, I would more prefer that the sales rep has that opportunity to talk with the customer or reach out to the customer, give them another reason to engage. So sales rep reminders are really preferred for me because, again, they're going to get that reminder. They're going to know if the customer has not viewed the document. They gives them that opportunity to call and say, have you viewed the document? And in this case, we know that they haven't because we've been notified as such, but again, it gives you that other opportunity to engage. Likewise, when the document's expiring, gives your customer that notification that, hey, are you still interested in this quote that we provided to you? If not, perfectly fine. If you need some more time, just let me know, and we can see if we can extend that quote an additional period of time. And then, of course, if a customer is not paid after a certain period of time, that's also an important thing for you to be able to follow up on. And in this case, it might not be the sales rep. It might be the sales rep reaching out to the accounting team to reach out. But needless to say, you have all of these different options, and it provides you with that ability to be reminded or remind the recipient directly when a particular threshold has been met. So I said there's 2 ways that you can set reminder options. The first way is here, and this is going to be a default on all quotes moving forward for QuoteValet. The other option that you have is when you actually go in and deliver the quote. So again, I'm just going to go and re-upload this to QuoteValet. You can see that there's a reminders option box right here. Now you'll see that 0 reminders have been set, and the reason for that is that that's my default. If you recall on the page we were just on, I had it set so that none of these were selected. But that being said, you have the ability to come on and toggle these in any way that you'd like directly from the QuoteValet upload page. So again, 2 different ways. First way is going to be to set a default. The second way is going to be to interact with them directly from the QuoteValet window here. Now, we did also talk about using the prepared by field as a means to keep someone notified of activity on a quote. Here we are going to go to the sale info tab, and this is going to be where you can set either the sales rep or the prepared by or both. And in this case, we might say that administrator, myself, I'm going to be the sales rep, but let's say that Ray is the person, the inside sales rep that's prepared it. This is going to be great because you'll be able to have Ray also notified as activities are being completed within the QuoteValet. So definitely a great option there. And then, as I mentioned earlier as well, you could potentially set up a document template preloaded with the sales rep and the prepared by, just so that if someone is preparing a quote, they're automatically included as that prepared by option there. All right, so that being said, this is a review of the 3 options that we discussed, right? We've got the activity notifications, we've got the reminder options, and then we've got the use of the prepared by field, all things that you can use to help keep your team in the loop. I haven't seen any questions come in yet. I'll kind of throw that option out there again one more time here for you as we're getting close to the end of the hour, or half hour, I should say. So if you do have any questions, go ahead and pop them into the chat. In the meantime, I'm going to hop back over into the PowerPoint and just to review some of the different resources that we have available. Now, we did talk about QuoteValet in some detail today. That being said, there's still a lot to be considered when it comes to QuoteValet. So, if anyone wants to get a free trial of QuoteValet, or if you haven't started using the QuoteWerks platform as well, we offer those free trials. Just reach out to the sales team. They'd be happy to assist with that. Or if you drop your information in the chat, I can also get you connected with them. In addition to free trials, there's a ton of different tutorial videos, help documentation, live and recorded webinars like this one that we have up on our website. And the other thing that I would mention is above and beyond all the different resources that are listed here, one of the greatest resources that we have at QuoteWerks are the people. So if at any time you want to engage, whether it's for a service engagement, for a question, or if you've got a technical support need, both our support and sales teams are always there, ready and willing to help with anything that you may have a need for. So with all that being said, I did take a look at the questions box. I haven't seen any questions come in, and we're getting right up to the top of the half hour. So I appreciate all your time today. I hope that you've learned a little bit more about how you can keep your team in the loop utilizing QuoteWerks and QuoteValet. And I'd like to thank everyone for your time. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.